Have you ever wondered why you instantly connect with some people and are absolutely filled with rage and frustration when talking to others? Well, look no further, my friends, because in today's episode of the I Drink From Skulls podcast, we're going to lift the lid on personality profiles and types so that you can start making more money today.
Let's go.
I drink from skulls, drink from the skulls of my enemies.
And whilst today's episode isn't specifically about sales, it is about the art of sales, psychology, communicating better. You'll have better relationships. You'll better be able to understand the people that you're talking to so that you can get your message heard and understood. And also, you'll be a better partner, better in business. Because if you can actually understand what someone is trying to say and you can communicate back to them in a way that hits them instantly without frustration, the language that they speak, it will only benefit you in every area of life. In fact, this is the very first thing you should do if you have a significant other. Get them to take a test. What sort of test? It's the DISC test, okay? DISC. Everyone should take it. There's no right or wrong answers with this thing. But what it does do is it will help you understand what type of personality type that you are, and equally as important, what type of personality your partner is, your work colleagues, your employees, your staff, the people that are on the other end of the call, your prospects. You're going to know, with some training of course, but you're going to have some absolute certainty on how to communicate better. This, my friends, leads to better things in all areas. Financially, bank accounts, you name it, it will improve everything. And I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we dig a little bit deeper. When it comes to your DISC personality profile, there's no right or wrong answers. This is a universal language. Every single human in the world, maybe even some reptiles, let's not go down that hole, have a DISC personality profile. It doesn't discriminate. It's a neutral language. It's a silent language. There's no one walking around with a big D on their head. Well, when it comes to personality types, that is. Your DISC profile doesn't measure intelligence, your values, skills and experience, your educational training, or your willingness to learn something new. It doesn't cover any of that stuff. But once you take a test and you start getting some training in this area, you're going to get some flashbacks. You're going to understand with certainty why every relationship you had probably didn't work out. You're going to work out why you didn't close the sale, why you just didn't click with that person, why you like having conversations with Sally at work and not Susan. Sorry, Susan. And when we're talking about DISC, we're not talking about something that we throw or we've got in our back. Each letter stands for the individual type of personality. So let's go through it. D stands for dominance. I stands for influence. C stands for conscientious. And S stands for steadiness. Again, there's no right or wrong profile. We all have one. Some of us have two. And some of those crazy unique people even have three. But for the most part, we all have one. And I'm going to get into that in a sec. But before I do, I want to quickly focus on the dude who invented this thing, because he's pretty cool. So the founder of the DISC personality profile was a psychologist by the name of Dr. William Moulton Marston. And he's best known for some really cool stuff, including inventing the polygraph and also the DISC profile. Now, Dr. Will had a few cool things happening at home. In fact, he had his wife, very lovely, very warm, very friendly, and he had his mistress. And for reference, this is back in the 1930s. Right or wrong, it worked for them, no judgment here. But what Dr. William noticed is that one of his ladies was the complete opposite of the other. And so he had to come up with different ways to communicate to each one. I don't know if we should give this guy a medal or throw him in jail, but either way, it's pretty cool. In fact, his mistress was the inspiration for the character known formerly as Wonder Woman. And I'm not going to dig too much deeper, but all I will share with you is that Wonder Woman wears a lot of spandex, a lot of tight clothing, whips and chains, has a lasso of truth. So what I'm going to do is bury this thing over in this box, and we're not going to say he's into some 50 Shades of Grey stuff. We'll leave that over there. But what I do want to focus on is how much this guy was seeking to figure out the truth. A psychologist dedicated his life to understanding people, and that based with his ongoing study of humans in the psychological space. That's how he came up with DISC. It's been around, like I said, since the 1930s. formalized in the 1940s, and used each and every day to this day. There's been many knockoffs, trade-offs, and things of that nature, but it always comes back to DISC. So what does D stand for? What does dominance mean? If you're a dominant person with a dominant personality, you are someone who's very fast-paced. You are direct. You are results-orientated, strong-willed, forceful even. Can come off as a little bit of a dick, but that's not their intention. Their personality is someone who is focused on results, getting things done quickly. A lot of CEOs are Ds. A lot of business owners are Ds because they make shit happen. So when we communicate to a D, how do you think they respond? If you're someone, a little bit like myself, who's a storyteller, who goes on extravagant adventures, who goes around and round in circles before they get to their point, it drives the Ds mad, drives them wild with rage. So when you can understand that someone is a D, or if you're a D yourself, how can you communicate more effectively with them? If you're doing a sales presentation, we don't use fluffy words like fun and energy and part of the family, or we're going to take this slow and steady because that's what wins the race. No, you're going to focus on getting shit done. We will deliver this outcome by this time and expect this ROI. That is how you talk to Ds. Equally as important, if you are a D, understand that most people are going to annoy you. That's okay. It's not their fault. It's not their intention. But you too want to learn how to communicate with their style because you only make up 25% of the population. And with that in mind, let's move on to I. One of my favorites, because I am naturally an I, influential. In fact, when I do my personality profile test, I'm a very high I, and just under that, as many traits, I'm also a D. Some of that is learnt behavior, mostly because of being in business. You do need to get results. You do need to get shit done. You have limited time. So whilst I is my natural state, D is my learnt behavior, and they're almost on par with each other, which is a really good mix, being in business, being in sales, because I focus on getting shit done, and I can communicate with people. I can have fun. I can have some energy. I like to drink from skulls. There's the I coming out of me. But in any case, they're outgoing people. They're bubbly. They're social. They're fun. They're optimistic. They have high energy. They're lively. They can walk into a room and talk to everyone. They also can be a little bit annoying. They're a little bit long-winded. They like talking about themselves. They chase butterflies. They don't finish their stories. They don't finish what they start. They're probably the person who has 26 browsers open on their computer. They struggle to meet deadlines. Like I referenced at the start of this thing, there's no right or wrong personality. Each have their great strengths and equally their weaknesses. And they're not strengths or weaknesses. That's just who they are. So when you're communicating to an I, it's important to recognize who they are and what they're about. You wouldn't talk about locking them down and following processes and procedures, paperwork. Ugh, you'll drive them mad. You want to talk about going on the journey, having fun, the experience, connection, being part of the family. That's how you connect with an I. And for those I's out there, you're going to have to learn how to communicate with the other three personality types. If it's a D, you need to shorten up your shit. You need to get results in first. And with that in mind, let's move on to the C, who are polar opposites of I's. Conscientious. These people are very analytical. They're quite reserved. They're precise. They're private. 100% systematic. Can you start to understand why an I and a C struggle to communicate? They are polar opposites. Again, neither of them is right. Neither of them is wrong. That's just humans being humans, baby. So let's learn how to talk to each other. So if you are a C, you always have to be correct. Everything has to be correct based on fact. You are focused on task. There is a process that must be followed and adhered to and done in a timely manner. You have exceptionally high standards. You're not going to be the life of the party. People will drain you. Talking about fun and adventure, it doesn't move you forward. Talking about systems and processes does though. But again, you only make up 1/4 of the room. So if having better relationships and communicating is important to you, communicating effectively is important to you, there is a system and a process that you can follow in order to achieve better outcomes. Did I just get your attention? When you communicate with a D, you'll have to understand that they too are very task-orientated. They are focused on the end outcome, the result. What they don't love is all the individual details of every step of a process being followed to get there. They want it done quick. Whereas you glorious sea hound, you are one who dots the I's and crosses the T's to ensure that every piece of the puzzle is connected perfectly. And whilst that makes logical sense to you, to everyone else, kind of annoying. Not saying it's not important, just saying how they see it. A D wants it done today. A D wants it done in 2.4 seconds. An I doesn't really care. They just want to have fun and make shit happen. And last but not least, the S. S stands for steadiness. They're very even-tempered, very supportive. In fact, the S can stand for supportive. They're very patient, very accommodating, extremely humble and tactful. They maintain the status quo. These people are great team players. In fact, being part of the team and having that sense of belonging to a community is very important to them. They're not focused on getting fast results. In fact, that would make them feel very uncomfortable. They don't like change. Whereas an I loves change. They live for change. In fact, staying stuck and steady, it's very challenging for an I. So when communicating with an S, you don't want to rush them. You don't want to make big changes. You want to maintain the status quo. You want to make sure they feel very comfortable with their decision, that we're not going to rush. We don't need to make any brash decisions today, but with some thought and some education, moving forward for an S is all about making them feel very comfortable with the decision and being part of a high-quality team that values each other. So let's circle back to the start. Let's do a little bit of a rehash. When it comes to dominant personality types, they use direct language. They can seem very demanding without providing context. They're the guys that are going to come into the room and yell at, "Right, we need this shit done now." And most of the room are going to say, "What shit done? How are we going to achieve that? What is he talking about?" So when you communicate with a D, be firm, be clear, be brief, and focus on results. Avoid long-winded conversations, long-winded greetings. Telling them every single detail of what you got up to on the weekend is going to drive them mad. They're going to switch off. Be efficient and be effective. When it comes to an I, they're the people that are going to use emotional language. Fun, excitement. They're always going to seek common ground for connection. They like talking about themselves, and they love compliments. They love social recognition. It fills their cup. The things that you want to avoid is focusing on the product, the service, the details, very formal situations or formal expressions, formal language. That's not them. You're going to lose them. If you're doing a presentation without a display, the I has dropped off. They're looking at the butterfly outside the room. And for our steadies, they're actually people who don't speak much, but when they do, it's very well thought out. They might even seem a little bit worried. They'll ask very specific questions, and they want to feel understood. Things to avoid: signaling that you don't have time, that you need things done quickly at the snap of a hat, not seeking their opinion, and just trying to rush them in general. And lastly, our C's, conscientious. They're the ones that are always going to ask process-driven questions. They want specifics. They want details. They're going to keep circling back and asking you for more information, even though you think you've already answered their question. They're not doing that to annoy you. That's just how their brain works. So what you want to avoid is starting very informally, focusing on too much emotion, fun, energy, excitement, long-winded stories that aren't focused on tasks or processes. And you also don't want to compete over your knowledge. You don't want to make them think that you're smarter than them, because they will argue with you to the ends of the earth on that. And that, my friends, is a little bit of a look at DISC and how it works. I would strongly recommend that you get a DISC profile test done today. Get a free one, get a paid one. Go in depth with it. Get some training on it. My wife and I have been doing this since 2015, and it is the number one thing that you can do to start having better relationships, better communication, make more sales, have better impact. If you're not doing it, your competitors are, and that should drive you wild. And with that being said, that's it from me. Look out for the next episode on the I Drink from Skulls podcast. I'm out.